Recently, I announced my intentions to max this account. Maxing an account is no small feat, even on a traditional main account for the first time. I've climbed that mountain not once, but twice before, and on the second go-around, I did it on an Ironman. But you know what they say.
How about you touch some grass?
What? No, they say good things come in threes. While this account has the luxury of being attached to my already maxed Grandmaster and bank absolutely stacked to the brim group Ironman, we're still going to be dedicating thousands of hours into accomplishing one thing. Our journey starts with a grind that cannot be cheated, meaning no shortcuts. Wait, no, there will be shortcuts. It's, agility. We're at the Relicore rooftops right now, but just recently we went to the Colossal Worm and greenlogged that. Don't worry, we're going to be splitting up the grind with other skills, and we're going to be enjoying ourselves on the already maxed account, PVMing and raiding to our heart's content. No, I'm not also skilling on that account right now. We've been staying on top of our birdhouse runs, and as such, we've made it to 87 Hunter. You can now catch greater sirens on Mulch Island with 91 fishing. Not too familiar with what that is, honestly, but the point is we've been staying on top of these birdhouse runs, and we're reaping the rewards, and we're going to continue to do this all the way up to 99. Someone just passed by and said, "Grats, I didn't even see anybody. I was too busy talking, zoomed in." Appreciate the fellow Gim. Not in my Gim, though. I'm by myself. Nevertheless, our game plan is to continue doing birdhouses all the way up to 99, but who knows, maybe sometime down the line, we're going to get some inspiration to do some other hunter content. For example, perhaps some herbivore here on Fossil Island. Back on my normal account when I first went for maxing the first go around, I did do a whole lot of herbivore and actually got the pet. It is a pretty cool one. However, on Wait For It, the other GIM account, I did exclusively birdhouse runs. Just completed lap 777 at Relica, and it's lucky after all because I just got a genie and oh my god, you know what? The genie disappeared as I spoke to it, so I don't know if I ended up with the lamp or not, but we did. And we're going to be putting this into Slayer. This is going to get us to 88 Slayer. The Hunter level we picked up and then the Slayer level we picked up was just a few minutes ago, and then I noticed I was kind of close to getting an agility level, so I kicked it into gear, and here we are working on one more lap. Maybe even midway through, we'll be able to hit 84 agility. Honestly, I did not plan this at all, but it's pretty cool how it all worked out, and we're going to get a level in 3 different skills within a couple of minutes of each other. 84 agility, there it is. You can now use the Ironworth Dungeon Southern Shortcut and the Crandor Wall Climb. You know, honestly, the thing about agility shortcuts is more times than not, you really don't think about them. So me reading that I unlocked something, I'm like, how is that relevant? But shortcuts, like I said, it's like, they're nice when you can use them, when you come across them, but it's like not something you really game plan around. With a few exceptions that I can think of. Off the top of my head, well, one exception is you want to hit level 70 agility for the Taverley Dungeon shortcut. That's like the only notable one that I can really think of at this point in time. Earlier I mentioned that we'd be getting ourselves into some PVM activities on Wait For It, our maxed account, while we continue the road to max on 416 Hero. Well, what kind of PVMing are we going to be doing in question? I've made up my mind, at least for right now. This is what we're going to be doing in the meantime. We can just as easily switch to something else 5 minutes later, honestly, but I think we're going to do a good couple of 100 KCs here before we move on to something else. And you might have already been able to guess it based on the location I'm standing at, but we're going to be doing some Zulrah. Now let me explain why we're going to be doing Zulrah. But first, let's take a look at the collection log. So we have 1,591 KC. We have all the relevant uniques here, the Magic Fang, the Serpentine Visage, the Tanzanite Fang, and even some Onyxes. But what we are missing is the Tanzanite Mutagen, the Magma Mutagen, and the Jar of Swamp. We do already have the pet though. Now getting these mutagens and the Jar of Swamp aren't really too relevant, they're just cosmetic, but it would be nice to have As well, you can see here, I do have 4 of these visages, so it'd be nice to have both helmets, both SERP helmets. Now, Zulrah is actually a personal favorite of mine. It's honestly the first PVMing experience I've really had, the first bossing experience I really had. The first boss I learned, and I definitely took off with that. The rest is history, as you say, later, many years later, becoming a Grandmaster. But this is where it all started, essentially. But beyond the mutagens and the jar, we are here at Zulrah for the regular drop table. Yes, despite all the nerfs over the years that the drop table has experienced, Zulrah remains a very, very good boss for Ironman to do, not only for its uniques, but the regular resources on the drop table as well. These resources provide EXP in herb lore, wood cutting, okay, not wood cutting, I don't know why I said that, but I was thinking of logs actually, that's why I said that. Logs for fletching, birdhouses, and whatnot. I guess fire making too, if you want to include that. And I guess the list goes on and on. You just have to really pull up the wiki and look at the drop table extensively, but you'll see that there are resources for just about any skill there is. Alright, before I just put my head down and start chipping away at the KC, one more little note. Our inventory is very full right now, right? And what do we want to do? Because we actually still have plenty of supplies to keep going, being that we are in absolute max gear for Zulrah. Well, there's actually a bank chest, or a deposit chest right here more specifically. Then you go ahead and put away some stuff, and then that opens up room for more loot for your next KC. Trying to squeeze in one more KC before I hit the bank, but you can see in my inventory we have some pretty juicy loot. We got a magic seed, great for farming EXP, and it's also worth 100k, so maybe good for desk coffer if you're at that point of the game now. And there's dragon bones. While we are still 63 prayer on the account, we got to start stacking up the bones for the inevitable prayer grind. And then of course Zulrah scales are always nice. For me personally, it's more so for the anti-poisons or the anti-venoms more specifically these days rather than using it for my blowpipe. And a trident is essentially dead content for me now too, so yeah, it's really just herb lore. Also, my bank tack layouts or the inventory setup for Zulrah was absolutely archaic, so I had to do some adjusting on the fly here. We swapped out the sharks for bluefin tuna, and bluefin tuna is great because it heals for, I believe, 20, or is it 22? I think it's 22 actually. But not only does it heal for 22, it actually also gives like 5 prayer back. So this is absolutely perfect for content like Zulrah. I do have about 1,400 or so sitting in the bank right now, but we're definitely going to be burning through that, and we will have to do some fishing or trawling more specifically sometime down the line. But you know what? That's great. That just gives us something else to do, because these days I'm always searching for things to do, which is actually why we're on this road to max in the first place. For reference, the last time I did any Zulrah, I didn't have Confliction Gauntlets or the Avernic Treads. Duma Mocha did not exist. I probably didn't even have the Saturated Heart. In fact, I most definitely didn't. And Extended Anti-Venoms didn't exist. And I think I was too much of a cheapskate to actually use Divine Potions, so a lot of things have changed over the years. We were pretty close to this milestone to begin with, but it's a milestone nonetheless. With that Shadow Cast right there, that nets us 1,600 Zulrah KC, some Papaya Tree Seeds, Antidote plus pluses, which are actually very nice. That's a nice drop for me specifically, and there's going to be many more KCs to come. And over on 416 Hero, we also reach a milestone. That was lap 900 here at the Relka course. A bit of a random thought here, but I think one of my underlying motivations to go on this maxing journey again for the 3rd time is that this time around I'll have video documentation of it, so I can look back on it and see what my thought process was, see what kind of things I got up to, what the game was like in the moment whenever I was doing XYZ. I do have screenshots and whatnot to show for on the other 2 accounts, thanks to Runelight and back in the day, what is it called? OS Buddy, if anybody remembers that. No luck yet at Zulrah, unfortunately, but we've been chipping away at the Relica rooftop, and that makes 1,000 laps here. In fact, right this second, right now, I'm not even logged in for Zulrah, taking a bit of a breather on that account because playing two accounts at once can be exhausting, particularly if you're PVMing on one account. I am currently in the middle of a Zulrah KC, but we just hit 85 agility. Okay. Elven Overpass and Waterbirth Island Cliffside. You know what? That Waterbirth Island one is actually a pretty significant unlock. That's pretty nice. But let's continue. We're back at it on the Zulrah grind. Just hit 1,700 total KC actually, so a nice little milestone there. I wish I could say when I was due or when I'm going to be due for a drop, but I can't remember the last time I was here at Zulrah beforehand, so it's a mystery and it's all 50-50 anyways, right? That's what they say? 50-50? I gotta pat myself on the back here for coming back to Zulrah because I'm thoroughly enjoying the experience right now. Zulrah is by far one of my favorite bosses, even to this day with all the bosses they've added into the game over the years. This is because this boss is like the right level of difficulty and intensity in my opinion. Once you get familiar with the boss rotations, it's honestly not too difficult. Obviously on the infamous mage phase, the second range phase as some people dub it, you do have to watch out for the big combos. For example, right there I got a hit an 11 and then a 2. Actually, that's very, very humble. You know, that easily could have been back-to-back 40s. But Missouri OP, I suppose, and 99 defense. Anyways, I was saying that Zulrah is just the right level of intensity because there is some prayer switching involved, there is some gear switching involved, but it's nothing too crazy, and a little bit of movement, right? You move around this U-shaped island to fight Zulrah, and before you know it, especially these days, the fight is over in about a little over a minute on average, probably, depending on your gear setup. Speaking of which, there are a lot of different gear setups that you could be using here at Zulrah these days, even melee. Something that I haven't tried just yet outside of in the first leagues where they introduced this concept where you could use halberds. Here at Zulrah, you'll find people in the most scuffed gear possible or imaginable, like mystic rope tops and rune crossbows, and then you'll have the people decked out in absolute max mage gear. Actually, while I'm in max mage with the shadow, I do wonder, is the Eye of Ayak from the Doom of Mocha actually better than the shadow here? I'm not too sure, but I'm having fun using the shadow right now though, so I'll continue to use that. With how difficult or mechanically complex some of these bosses that are being released these days, for example, Scurious can be arguably more complex than Zulrah if you think about it. But it's crazy to say that Zulrah was once upon a time probably considered the most difficult boss in the game. That's obviously not the case these days anymore. What I can say though, is that Zulrah was the best moneymaker in the game at one point in time for sure. It was absolutely crazy here. For KC 1738, we actually got a double Chaos Rune drop. Good for recharging our shadow that we've been using, and of course these Zulrah scales. Ooh, we finally get a drop, a unique on the grind, and that's going to be an uncut Onyx on KC 1758. Let's take a look at the collection log here. Easy to find Zulrah because it starts with Z all the way at the bottom, just after Zolcano. That is our fourth uncut Onyx on the account. Now, funny enough, when it comes to Onyxes, I actually have plenty of those. 7 cut Onyxes from the Chambers of Xerix, more specifically Tecton. But nice to see the first drop back at Zulrah. Let's continue and hope to see a couple more. Amidst all the attention on Zulrah and our first drop just now, let's not forget what we set out to do in the first place, and that is to max 416 hero. Yep, we're still at the Relica course, running round and round and round. We're up to 1370 laps now, so closing on 1400. And there's many more to come because right now we're still 85 agility, on our way to 86 with about 115k EXP remaining. And as I said before, the road to max is a long journey, and sometimes it's not so interesting. And obviously when we are focusing on PVMing and bossing like Zulrah, the efficiency running the laps is going to take a bit of a hit. You know, we're not going to be as efficient. But that's okay, because if we think about it this way, if I was to sit here and watch myself do agility laps over and over again, I'd probably get off the game sooner than later. But in doing something like Zulrah, it just seems like a background activity where I'm every now and then glancing over to the other screen and clicking a few green or red boxes, depending on if I get a marked gray stat lap or not. And it just seems like progress flies by a lot quicker. And as I said earlier, some progress is better than no progress. It's not always about doing the most efficient thing possible, because that's how you burn yourself out of the game. I mean, if you can do that, you're just a different breed, I guess. Go ahead, by all means, crank out the max efficiency. But a lot of the times when you're thinking of a grind, it can seem kind of daunting because you're thinking about what you need to do and how long it may take. But if you simply just start and not worry too much about that, before long, you would get to where you need to be anyways. Plus, with a game like old school RuneScape, it's not really the destination. It's a cliche, I know. It's not really the destination, but it's the journey along the way. At least when it comes to this game, I feel like I understand that thought process more so than anybody, or just as much as anybody else, because whenever I reach a goal, honestly, I don't spend too much time celebrating it or anything like that. I'm always asking, what's next? Like when I first maxed my account, what's next? Let me get the Inferno Cape. Did that, what's next? Oh, let's start an Ironman. And then rinse and repeat. And here I am now, trying to max 416 hero. And you can definitely guess it, when the time comes when I max that account, I'm going to be asking myself, what's next? A nice little break in the action to do another birdhouse run. We've been making good progress in this regard. We're on our way to 88. Now, talking about the birdhouse run, does anybody else fall into this? I don't want to say trap, I don't know what the right wording, like a lull, I guess, where you're doing an activity like agility, running round and round on the rooftops, and, you know, you get the notification, your birdhouse run is ready to do. Well, you're like, all right, let's finish out the lap and then go do our birdhouse run, only to do like 2 to 3 more laps, and you just keep forgetting to do your birdhouse run. This is going to be KC 1800. Let's see what we're going to get here. If my shadow would hit something higher than a 6. There we go. And get some runite ore, of course, the scales, and teleport scrolls, I should say. Now, these teleport scrolls, as long as you do about 3 KC per trip, you should be able to profit on these, or at the very least sustain them. But if you can't do more than a 3 KC trip, then you're going to eventually run out of those teleport scrolls, unless you just happen to get very lucky. Anyways, along with the 1800 KC here at Zulrah, we are now just about 1 hour removed from getting 86 agility. So we finally are making some progress after hundreds upon hundreds of laps at the Relica course. I may or may not have just planked that Zulrah, but either way, what a great way to break up the grind by coming to the farm guild, doing my contract, and replenishing the compost bin here, as well as getting the snape grass. I always like to do 1 harvest of the snape grass per day. This is actually my second go round, but snape grass is always needed for the prayer potions, and as we know, if you do any PVMing, prayer potions are ever important. And for good measure, let's go ahead and do a limpwort root and herb run. For herbs, we're planting toad flax right now. Not that I'm in short supply of brews, but I'm thinking ahead for 416 hero. I think a lot of the potion making, I mean, we have plenty of supplies, but something I'm actually a little short on is that toad flax. I have an ungodly amount of bird's nest between the 2 accounts from all the birdhouse runs we've done, but when it comes to the toad flax, not so much. Well, in the middle of that farm run, I now actually have to do a birdhouse run on this account as well. Whenever I'm on the move like this on 2 accounts, it gets very confusing, so hopefully I don't go cross-eyed. But let's finish this lap. I mentioned this earlier, but yep, okay, let's TP out. Let's not start another lap. Let's go ahead and get our supplies for the birdhouse run. 86 agility. 13 more levels to go in this skill. Another 374k until we get 87. Oh, I just punched a warrior. I'm trying to climb up, don't mind me. Let's keep grinding. Wow, a double dragon medium helm drop. That's gotta be pretty rare. So I guess this is a little bit of a sneak peek as to how I've been playing the two accounts at the same time. I have the Zulrah, the maxed account, near the top of my screen, and then just below it I have the other client on 416 Hero running the laps. In the middle of a Zulrah KC, you can see where I'm kind of finding the moments to click on the other client so that I can keep running the laps. Now this KC ended up being a pretty neat one. It was pretty speedy, and as it turns out, we just tied our PB. Mega rares might be fun to use, but something like the Tumikin's Shadow is very expensive to charge, and right now we're down to just a little over 1,000 charges remaining on the Tumikin's Shadow. This bad boy costs 5 Chaos Runes and 1 Soul Rune for every cast, so imagine that. So with all the Chaos Runes we just had, which was about 20,000, 22,000, we get another 4,500 charges into our Shadow, which can hold up to 2,000, or 20,000 I should say. We're still pretty good on the Soul Runes right now, but keep in mind I got this stack of Soul Runes from my time going for 99 rune crafting, and my over 1,000 Chambers runs. I don't know how many Soul Runes came from Chambers specifically, but this stack used to be like 500k, 600k, and it's been depleting over time. And let's check back in with 416 Hero over at the Relica rooftops. We're closer and closer to 87 agility now, just under 56,000 EXP to go. And then 3 more levels and we'll hit the Ardoin, RD, however you pronounce it, rooftop courses. Now actually, finishing this lap, let's go ahead and do a birdhouse run. Let's teleport to the farming guild. But also, before we even get to 90 agility, once we hit 87, I do plan on taking a step back from agility just for a little bit, not because I'm necessarily tired of doing agility. I'm still, enjoying it quite a bit actually, especially since I'm occupying most of my time doing other content on the other account. However, actually, it's the perfect time that we're doing a birdhouse run right now, but I've been looking into it. Once we hit 89 Hunter, we're going to move on to Redwood Birdhouses. And along with 89 Hunter, we're going to need to get from 76 all the way to 90 crafting. So we're going to shift our focus a little bit on crafting EXP. Now earlier I mentioned that most of our crafting EXP is probably going to come from gold bars, in which we're going to have to do smithing for gold bars. Luckily, we already have the gold ore banked. But I also do have a whole bunch of battle staves and orbs, charged orbs more specifically, available in the bank as well. So I think I'm going to get through some of that. And the nice thing is, not only is that going to be crafting EXP, it's also going to be nice GP once we process it all. But yeah, that's the game plan right now, and it is a nice change of pace to just take a step back away from running laps over and over again. And yeah, we're going to be training another skill, at least for a little bit. I still want to get agility out the way sooner than later. That way we have an easier time towards the end of our maxing journey. Now that our Tumikin's Shadow has some more chargers in it, we're back at Zulrah, and honestly, us doing Zulrah has worked out very well because we were just talking about crafting EXP and making some battle staves. Well, Zulrah actually has battle staves on the drop table, dropping 12 noted battle staves at a time. We have a healthy reserve of orbs. In fact, I'm pretty sure we have more orbs of various elements, ranging from air to water to whatever. So the more stabs we can get right now, the better, and the more EXP we'll be able to get that way. Of course, like I said, most of the EXP is going to come from gold, but this is going to net us some nice GP, which is always nice to have for Scar Essence and anything else that might come up. Slight correction as to what I just said. I mentioned that Zulrah drops 12 battle staves at a time. Is actually 10. What does drop in packs of 12, though, is... I guess 12 is a dozen, right? What does drop in a dozen is the dragon bones, which will also be useful for us down the line when we train prayer, but my immediate thought right now is for crafting. There's something about doing rooftop agility which is comparable to, I guess, like driving in real life, in which you just have a lot of time to think. And along with thinking, I've also been doing a lot of rummaging through my bank tab here on the maxed account, and we have 99 crafting banked in more ways than one. The thing I've been mentioning the most is the gold bars and gold ore, and more recently we were talking about the orbs, which for some reason are actually in a different tab over here, and battle staves. So we have just under 9,000 battle staves, and we have over 10,000, I believe, of these orbs in various elements. But we also have 35,000 molten glass, mostly from Theater of Blood, I imagine, and maybe some leftover from this account's 99 grind. And we also have nearly 82,000 buckets of sand, courtesy of Bert, or is it Bart? I don't remember, but the Hand in the Sand quest in combination with the Artie Elite Diary. We have this racked up, and we actually have about 1,300 giant seaweed left over from my time on this account to 99 as well. And if we just scroll around, we got gems for days from Chambers of Xerix and various other things that we could think about. So yeah, just looking into our bank, there's a lot of options, different avenues we can go to get crafting EXP. On top of that, we've been doing Zulrah for battle staves, but something that would be even better for crafting EXP would be Vorkath, for example, where it just gives out blue dragon hide and actually all other dragon hides left and right. So that would also be good crafting EXP as well as GP, and actually a chance at draconic visages, which would be very nice. I will say though, we're probably going to stick to the game plan and knock out all the battle staves first, especially the air ones. I believe that's the best EXP and definitely the best GP. So we're going to do that, and then we'll see where we land in terms of crafting levels, and then maybe dip into the gems as well. The gold bars are the game plan for the long run, but it's probably also one of my slower options. So if I can pick up faster GP, I'm going to go ahead and do that first. Or faster EXP, I should say. You know, even though I've done this course 1,902 times, plus whatever I've done on other accounts, I never remember how much EXP you gain per lap. But there we go, that just confirmed what I was questioning. 87 agility with the completion of that lap. So, well, first of all, we unlocked the ability to use the Brimhaven Dungeon Vine. I'm sure that's useful, especially if we're doing Konar Slayer, we might end up there. I guess with the exception of Konar Slayer, there's no reason we would be there, to be honest. Nevertheless, after the completion of 87 agility now, let's turn our sights to crafting. And I've been thinking, this road to 90 crafting is a bit of a race. It is a bit of a time crunch, as we gotta get to 90 crafting before we get to 89. Because every 45 to 50 minutes, we're gonna be doing a birdhouse run. With that being said, the race kicks off in the next one.